Welcome to Code Corner. This is a video series we do at Mayfield Renewables, highlighting some key sections of codes and standards as they relate to the solar and storage energy system markets. My name is Tyson. Today we're going to look at hazard mitigation analysis, HMA section that's fresh in the 2026 NFPA 855. Just really quickly, you found us today because you know that we are passionate about education, but I wanted to also just highlight the fact that we, as a firm, do the lion's share of our work in project engineering, and so engineer of record services, stamping design sets, mostly in the C&I space. In North America, we also offer some consulting and engineering services like feasibility analyses for technical and financial project feasibility. And we offer education online, on retainer, and in person. So today, again, we're going to look at the 2026 NFPA 855. A reminder what this standard is all about. This is a standard for the installation of stationary energy storage systems. You'll notice here that it does have a little caveat for maybe even portable ESS that's used in a stationary manner. And it highlights in particular lithium-ion batteries. We'll see the purpose of this standard also is just giving us minimum requirements to navigate and de-risk our products, and it does again highlight a specific chemistry of all others. And so today I'd like to sort of consider lithium ion batteries specifically, although parts of surely chapter 4 apply to other chemistry types too. A couple things to note about how we're going to navigate the new language, since trying to highlight what's new in 2026 as opposed to 2023. EMS, as in Montana, isn't necessarily new language or new sections. It's rather stuff that we already had, and we're just going to put it in a different spot or use different numbering system. Whereas ENS, as in Nebraska's, is new stuff that we should consider. So just keep that in mind as we roll into the next slides here. So in chapter 4, this is a general chapter, so it applies to all of the different energy storage systems we might want to install, and that we'll see in specific details in chapters 9 through 13. And so 4 applies across the board. It's a nice place to start, and surely HMAs should be covered in chapter 4, and sure enough they are. So in chapter 4, beyond the general, we've got these other sections, and looking at our options, we're going to hop right to 4.4. Hazard mitigation analysis is to be provided to the HJ for review and approval unless in our specific technologies chapter, we're going to look at 9, it says otherwise, right? And as I go along here, just a quick reminder that I'm hoping not to read all the language to you, but rather if you need to pause at any point and just take it in, please feel free to do so. So I'll just highlight what I think is most pertinent in each of these sections as we go. So let's hop into 9 to see what chapter 9 says about HMAs. So electrochemical ESS, that is chapter 9. Electrochemical is a fancy word. It catches a lot of things, including lithium ion and lead acid and some other nickel-based batteries. And so you'll see here there's a couple caveats. New to the section is just sort of giving a pathway for lead acid to not have to worry about this, aqueous nickel to not have to worry about an HMA, a hazard mitigation analysis. And it also gives some leeway for an HJ in that second bullet point there to require one based on certain findings, right? So we might require, some adjustments to the mitigation and protection of our systems based on what we find in the analysis. And also unlisted products, as you see there too. One thing I want to highlight, and this is quite important, is in what circumstances, which system sizes do we need to consider HMAs? I have on the screen here, as you can read, the old language and table from the 2023 around what's called maximum allowable quantities or maximum stored energy. And you'll notice that there was this threshold above which an HMA would be required. It's almost like just a safety. We were saying, what sort of systems would a site-specific hazard mitigation analysis be required for? And so, above 20 kilowatt hours, which is sort of in the scope, earlier sections of this document, sort of the starting point of system size per fire area. Is there a threshold above which we want to make HMAs mandatory? And so in 23, that threshold was 600 kilowatt hours per fire area. That has gone away in 26, which is to say, hey, that 600 kilowatt hour threshold was something we agreed on. It was semi-arbitrary, and it turns out we might want to have site-specific hazard mitigation analyses for many more of our systems. There's certain risks that come with a 400 kilowatt hour per fire area system, let's say, that we should probably consider, analyze, and mitigate against. So now we're going to get into some more specific language of what a HMA does, and it might be helpful to realize that at the end of the day, an HMA is going to be a report written by a fire protection engineer that will then be read by another fire protection engineer using very sort of data-centric language. And so it's not really an HMA report. It's not something a fire service would read, or let's say a community would want to read, but an emergency response plan is something they would want to read. And so we see here what we're doing is essentially considering failure modes one at a time, right? And we've got a list of failure modes that we might consider. I really want to just highlight number one there. So we've got the situation where, let's see, a little laser pointer here for you. Really looking at thermal runaway and some of that type of failure. That's one that's obviously been on the top of mind for a lot of folks. But there are other options looking at other failure modes of some of the balance of system situations, or other components within a BESS, right? And then there might be failure modes that the AHJ is in a specific jurisdiction might be a little more sensitive to, and so we want to give some space for that as well. Further on, we've got noticed that some language around many things here, and I just want to highlight maybe the last couple, 6 and 7 down yonder, and just say that with lithium ion, and particularly when the cathode is LFP, so iron phosphate, lithium iron phosphate, there's some good thermal runaway stability in general as far as when it might start, but there's also a little added off-gas risk, flammable off-gas risk. And so looking at gas detection failures there, looking at failures in explosion control and prevention, that's, I think, a really pertinent one for the technologies that most people use. So. 433, just moving along here, asks us that to look at some of the impacts for, again, thinking ahead to an emergency response plan, what the folks who, heaven forbid something were to happen to a facility that has a lithium battery, can we adjudicate what our evacuation plan might look like, right? Our response to the unfortunate event, right? Also bringing in the other 3 bullet points here. Again, pause and read if you'd like, but I just want to point out number 4, there is some boilerplate information about like why and to whom this analysis should be delivered, what our audience is. So in this case, the fire marshals would oftentimes would be the AHJ in some cases, in many cases. And number 3 there is what I really want to highlight again: explosion control and prevention systems. This is actually, for those of you who are already working with NFPA 68 and NFPA 69, whether you're a manufacturer or you're an installer, an EPC, and you're already working with it. This is actually the pathway in 855 to get you to those documents as well. And there's a lot of conversation to be had around how we can develop those types of systems that are under those standards, 68 and 69, to address some of the concerns we might uncover through our hazard mitigation analysis. Lots more we could say on HMA, but just to wrap up, if you are curious to learn more about how batteries might play in your microgrid or your PV plus BESS, and how code compliance and safety standards might play around BESS, please reach out. We have lots of ways of learning more about this, online courses. Again, we do custom training in person or online as well on a quarterly sort of retainer system if you want to. And also, if you do have any extra questions or a specific project that you are concerned with around HMAs or any topic, really, we've got a phone number there for you, and education@mayfield.energy is a way to reach out to me or Ryan or our team of designers. And with that, I hope to see you on the next Code Corner.